6th public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ted Kempton, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present their report. We will then ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the commissioners will ask questions in the same order as the presentation. Next, the applicant will have 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. After the public hearing is closed, no further testimony can be given. The commissioners will then discuss the case, and we will make our decision based on Chapter 27 of the City Code of Ordinances, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review Committee comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence cell phones. And we'll start on my left with the introductions of the commissioners.
Dan Myers, architect.
Hi, Carol Post. I'm the public policy representative.
John Perkup, I practice architecture.
Elena Perez Ketchum, attorney rep.
Brian Hammond, architect.
We also have Ron Vila, staff. We've got Alexis Guzman. We've got Dana Crosby Collier, attorney. And also we have John Marsh from the Transportation Department, Stephen Eister from Natural Resources, and Sam Thomas from the Zoning Department.
Good evening, Commissioner. Ron Vila, I'm staff for Historic Preservation. If we could get a motion for the reading of the minutes that were submitted December 2nd, 2024.
Move to accept.
Go ahead.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a second motion to move the minutes. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Motion passes.
Under announcements, we are going to have a Wednesday night meeting. We have 2 cases for Wednesday night. We already have a quorum. 5 of the commissioners stated that they could attend. Also, we have the staff approvals that we submitted into your packets. This is part of the ordinance that we have to submit this every month. And then we have our publication that we do monthly as well. This is the Tampa Bricks and Mortar. It's online if anybody wants to follow it. This month we focus some residential and retail new development in Ybor City, and that is going to be the preservation and progress segment that I'm about to do as well. So moving into that segment for preservation and progress. It's on the corner of Nucio, 7th and 8th Avenue. As I stated, it's new construction. It's a pretty large request that came forward and received approval. We have 2 structures that are currently there. And then on 7th Avenue, the new construction, which is 4 stories, starts here, then goes down Nucio, and then this is 8th Avenue here, and then it continues to 8th Avenue and terminates on 15th Street. This is the 1929 Sanborn map that we like to show. Property in question is highlighted with the star here. You see some of the fabric that was around in 1929. The red indicates brick construction. The yellow is frame construction. There is an alley that runs in between the subject site back in 1929. As part of that coming forward, the alley was vacated for the project, and it's an internal portion to the request that came forward. This was an existing structure. This was an existing structure along 7th Avenue. If you look at the fabric that we incorporated here, we look at the scale and the massing, and we look at the setbacks, we look at the fabric that is around there and what's telling us through the Sanborn map and the current land that's out there today to move forward. So as they came forward for new construction, it's a 4-story mixed use, as I stated, retail and residential. They asked for a couple of variances for the loading berth space reduction and maneuvering in the right-of-way. There was no variance for height. In this zoning classification, this is YC1, parking is not required. So this project came forward with 0 parking associated with this request. This is the site plan. Once again, we have 7th Avenue, we have Nucio, we have what was an alley that was vacated, and 8th Avenue. On the main floor, we have the retail, and then above that, you have the residential. I was just going to show the renderings that are here, and then we have some pictures to assist in this. This is the overall south elevation, which is 7th Avenue. You see the undulation of the building, how the tops kind of vary to be distinctive, to break down the massing. You see some of the articulation on the building. You see some balconies that are scattered throughout the project. You see the lower storefronts for the retail, and then you see some articulation, some arch work and ironwork as well. This is moving to the ceremonial front, which is on the corner of Nucio and 7th. This is the north elevation off of 8th. And some pictures to help out to understand exactly what those renderings were telling you. So you have the gateway that's on 7th Avenue. You have the new construction. As you zoom in a little bit here, this is that facade. As you break down the 7th Avenue facade, you see the incorporation of different elements to break down the massing. That's done with color, that's done with material, and then the articulation as well. And then you see the lower storefront here, how it changes. The variety of the storefront is indicative of the storefronts along 7th Avenue as well. This is on the corner of 7th and Nucio. And then as you turn the corner, you have the alley that's kind of picked up here in between the building and then here in between the building. The alley was respected. The alley, although it's been vacated, is an open vista that you can see and is part of the pedestrian walkway as you get into the complex. In reviewing the project, we look at the Ybor City Design Guidelines and we look at the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The standards is pretty silent on new construction, but basically it talks about the scale and the massing and the setback should complement the environment that's there today. And just going to the Secretary of Interior standards again, what's recommended, it's a new design that is compatible with the historic character of the setting. So that we used those documents, the Secretary of Interior standards, we used the Ybor City Design Guidelines to assist the applicant to come forward to get an approval from the board to ultimately get a building permit, and now it's in operation. They have residential components that are being rented out now, and then they have some of the retail components on the main floor as well. So this was a huge project for Ybor City.
Great, thank you very much.
So moving down the agenda, we'll have legal address the board.
Good evening, Dana Crosby Collier with the City Attorney's Office. I need to inquire if any member has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening?
I do not.
None.
Okay. And has any member engaged in an ex parte communication regarding any item on the agenda this evening?
I have not.
Thank you so much.
So a little housekeeping, we have to move forward. On page 1 of your agenda, we have some continuations to take care of. We have 3 continuations that are going to go to the February 10th, 2025 cycle. We'll need 1 motion for all of those. And that starts with ARC 24-0000273 for the address of 611 South Magnolia. The second continuation is ARC 24-0000-431/REZ 24-0000-104. This is for the address of 402 South Oregon Avenue. And then the last continuation to February 10, 2025 is ARC 25-00000048. All these continuations were requested by the agents to be continued to the February 10, 2025. And if we could get a motion for that, please.
Move to continue ARC 24-00000273 at 611 South Magnolia, as well as ARC 24-00000431 at 402 South Oregon Avenue, and ARC 25-000048 at 827 Bayshore Boulevard. Move to continue these to the February 10th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
All right, we have a second. Do we see any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And now we have two continuations from tonight's public hearing to Wednesdays. When we get all these cases in, we try to balance them, and as it moves forward to the public hearing, we have some continuations and some movement, so we try our best to balance them. So we need one more motion, please, for ARC-25-000050 for 407 South Delaware Avenue, and for ARC 25-000054 for 800 South Village Circle, that's Block F. Both of those are requested to be continued to the January 8th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30 p.m. Get a motion for that, please.
I move to continue ARC 25-000050 at 407 South Delaware Avenue, and ARC 25-000054 at 800 South Village Circle, Block F, to the Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
All right, we have a second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we're ready for the first case.
We're ready for the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand. Ms. Guzman swears in, including staff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, our first agenda item is ARC-24-0000-336. This is for the address of 1703 West Chaton. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. There is a contributing structure that dates back to 1916. That is the primary structure. The underlying zoning is RM24, and the request is for new construction in addition to the primary structure with site improvements. There's been some previous action. This case has been in front of this board as early as 9/9/2024, and for whatever reason, it's been continued. They renoticed, and they are here today and can move forward. So moving down the photo presentation. Once again, I'd like to start with the Sanborn map. Property in question is highlighted in the green box. It's second in from an alley that runs north and south. This is on Chaton. This is on the 1700 block of Chaton. There is an alley that runs east and west behind the subject site. If you look in 1929, you see some of the residential fabric. Then you have some larger structures that were multifamily, and you have some empty parcels here. I'm going to show you later on the development of the whole block, how it sits today. But just focusing back on the site, this is the subject site that faces Chaton. This is the front elevation. Along that primary corridor, you have a linear sidewalk with a small retaining wall. This is looking at the front elevation and the west elevation. This is moving to the east side. This is the front and the east elevation. If you notice, these pictures were taken in 8 of 2024. Since then, we had 2 hurricanes that came through and caused some damage to the site. So that appendage would have been over here somewhere. And if you notice, some of the trees have been removed as well as part of the storms coming through. I'm going to let the authorized agent address that. This was that little nodule that received some damage through the storm. This was in December of 2024. And then back in 8 of 24, the structure looked like this as well. When the storms came through, they had to remove it. They have some pictures to show you to assist in the project moving forward. This is from the back of the site, looking towards Chetan. The abutting structure to the east, when the trees were damaged through the storm, that structure received some damage as well. This is looking at the structure on the west side, no damage to that. And to conclude with the alley that runs behind the subject site to the east and to the west. And at this point, that concludes the photo presentation, and I'll have the agent address the board.
Good evening. Jamie Mayer of the law firm Hillward Henderson, representing the applicant, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700, and I have been sworn. Thank you, Mr. Vila, for the excellent presentation and staff report and for working with us to get us where we are today. Before I turn it over to the architectural presentation, I just wanted to address a few non-architectural points. So as Mr. Vila stated, since September when we were first here, we've been working with staff on the design and the presentation, as well as working with transportation staff on vetting some of the options for parking on this site, because that was a direction we received from the board to take a closer look at what was possible. And as the board is, of course, well aware, unfortunately, 2 hurricanes hit about a month or so after we had our hearing, and so the sunroom on the side of the house that you saw, the grand tree on the site fell through it. And the intent, because it was a contributing part of that structure, is to restore it now as part of this project as well, of course. So it will be restored as a sunroom. Of course, the architect, Mr. Lamb, will be speaking in more detail about the actual architectural proposal, but I just wanted to, again, discuss the driveway. We had proposed a driveway be added in order to meet the required 2 off-street parking spaces for this site. After multiple conversations with transportation staff over the past few months, we have determined that the driveway is still the option for meeting that code requirement to have 2 off-street parking spaces. The site, to reiterate, is not compliant with the code for off-street parking as it stands today. The garage on the site does not even count as 1 space because it does not meet the code requirements. We did receive a support letter from the neighbor directly across, whose driveway would be directly across from the driveway that's proposed. He raised the benefit not only of taking 2 cars off the road, even if the curb cut reduces the available street parking by 1 space, you're still net positive because you're taking 2 cars off the street and putting them on a property. But in addition, the maneuvering difficulty for a narrow street like this for a driveway, it'll be beneficial to him, especially to have a driveway directly across from him, because right now there's street parking in his back out radius. So we did prepare exhibits after discussions with transportation staff, trying to determine what would be possible if we were to park in the rear. This is the exhibit that would show more of the traditional standard perpendicular parking. So you'd have the parking pads, and then you would have to have the driveway leading out to the alley. It would have to be paved and of a sufficient depth to meet the back out turn radius, which can hardly be met in the confines of this extremely narrow alley's pavement. And it turns the backyard into a utilitarian area. It eats up a significant space that's usable. You'd be staring at parked cars from your deck and from the rear windows of your house. Clearly, this is atypical, this is undesirable, and it's even still impractical because of the narrow back out radius of the alley. We also vetted the potential for parallel parking that would be compliant with the code. again, because of the code, it would have to be of a sufficient depth and width of paving for the 2 spaces to meet the requirements. There's specific stall requirements that would have to be met, and there's also flares, and as you can see from the, oh, sorry about that, the lines here, the flares, if meeting the code requirement, would extend well beyond the property's boundaries. So we confirmed with transportation staff, this site cannot sustain parallel parking, 2 stalls that would satisfy what the code requires. So this isn't a compliant option, but again, even if it were, it would eat up the backyard and turn it into a parking area more so than a usable backyard. And the alley itself is not a great location for primary ingress and egress. It's extremely narrow, it's frequently blocked, and that strip of grass that does exist between the fence and the paved alley is frequently used illegally by others for parking. And we just, for reiteration, overlaid both potential parking scenarios that we explored, and it really eats up the rear yard. You lose it to the paving and the cars. And many others in this neighborhood have a pool or a playground or other amenities, and the applicant's ability to do that in the future. They just had a baby, so there's likely some things they might want to add in the backyard as their family grows. It would be very difficult to do that, and it would be overshadowed in either scenario by pavement and by the cars parked back there. And that's not what their neighbors have. This property owner has every right to enjoy their backyard similar to the way others in Hyde Park do, without 2 parked cars and pavement dominating the whole thing. And you see many other neighbors in this area. The norm is to have some form of backyard amenity, even if it's just green space. But if a pad or parallel parking is added, it would be front and center, main feature of the backyard, if it could even be code compliant. What we have proposed is a code compliant way to meet the requirement in order to be approvable that we have 2 off-street parking spaces. It's consistent with the design guidelines, with the immediate area, and with the use of backyards that others enjoy. After that, with this, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lamb to discuss the architectural project.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ron and the board. George Lamb, project manager, lead designer for the project. So just to give you a little bit more information now, what the proposals for the lot is. We spoke with transportation. We went through an extensive exercise to make this feasible, as well as all the code requirements that are vetted into the design, and as well as to all the setbacks and all the requirements for the 2 parking stalls. So here we just have on the left-hand side is the existing conditions, and the dashed lines or the representation here is what would need to be stripped out to allow the new proposed driveway into the site. I'm just showing you some blow-ups just so you can see it in a little bit close-up range. Sorry. So just so you have an understanding that we're meeting the guidelines, we're meeting the requirements. We also have where we're going to include the ribbons, the ribbon drive aisles, as well as the paved brick patterns in the middle. And the retaining walls on both sides is going to stay, or we're going to try to stay true to what is already there and preserved. Here's just to give you a little bit more information and clarity. So we have the pervious pavers down the middle, and then the 2 ribbon driveways, or the 2 ribbons on both sides, with the control joints to be very similar and to respect the other properties along Jeton. The other thing too is we also accommodated and worked through all the curb cuts requirement all the way to the street, and we would depress the existing granite curbs to preserve all the existing curb cuts that are already there on the site. This is just an exhibit, sorry, just to show you a little bit of scenario very similar to what we're trying to propose here on this lot. Again, just addressing the green is what we're working on. This is the project in scope. And then all the X's are other sites that have very similar conditions to what we're trying to propose here. And again, these are just other properties now that you can see the driveway, you can see what we're trying to also complement. So the paved the pervious pavers in the middle, the 2 ribbon cuts on the side, and then the preservation and the return of these retaining walls. Here again are just a few other case scenarios. And you can see some of them that have been treated and gone through the exercises to preserve it. And some of them are just a little bit more eroded over time. And just a few more other, and this is all over on Jatan. So now to the main residence and what our design intent is. This is just to show prior conditions of the home, so you have an understanding of what's currently, or what was there. There was a lot of paved, there's existing pavers, and there's an existing deck on the back. And you can see that they used the backyard, and they have a lot of vegetation as well as landscaping. So the owner wishes to keep as much as they can in that backyard. Here's just some prior conditions. I'm just showing you here on this side. This is where we're extending and raising to this 2-story bottom space that I'll show you shortly. And just some other relationship of where the driveway, the proposed driveway will be located. Here's the front facade. And again, here's a few elements that we're introducing. Again, the knee walls or the retaining walls to turning back, the proposed driveway, and we're proposing a 5E metal crimp roof. The intent is to keep the structure intact. It's just changing the aesthetics and the finish of the existing residence. In the back here, that's what you would see from street view, is the proposed second addition beyond, which tries to complement but not overpower what's already there. This is coming up on the west elevation, so this is the right side. This is the damaged area that we will put to its original state. We're also complementing a lot of the aesthetics that were damaged to its original state as well. The proposed addition, which is on the right side, which is kind of a lighter tone, it is only for graphic interpretation right now. It's not intended to be 2 different hues. It was just for clarity of information. So the proposed area, we're setting it back 1 foot, so it's not in line with the existing, just to show the difference between what was there and what's being proposed, as well as addressing some of the other existing conditions with the roof and not trying to engage it or impact it, as to preserve the original intent of that roof. Another addition that we're doing is just some articulation. We wish to complement the existing windows that are already on the existing house and complement that same theme throughout the project. The second floor, we're trying to complement to the second story of the gable roof over to this gable proposed roof area. On the rear side, this is showing you again the addition of the second floor and then the engagement of the first floor. We're keeping some of the elements of the original first floor, and then we're actually proposing just, again, a continuation of what's existing and complementing those aesthetic and those elements. To the left is the existing detached garage, which the owner wishes to keep and to preserve. And it's just complementing what's around on this side. On the west facade, or the east facade, I'm sorry, we're proposing here's the second floor addition and not engaging in trying to preserve the existing gable roof. So everything here is to try to preserve what was already there, and this is just an addition to complement the 1.5-story structure that was already there. Here's just a few very diagrammatic cross sections of the building, just so you can understand the relationship and the heights and and what's going to be there. And then on the side here is just a wall section, basically just outlining what's going to be proposed here. A few things here too is the foundation does have piers. The skirt of the bottom part it is, and I could go back in the images later, but the skirt of the building actually goes down to the grade. So I know that's not the best thing. So what we're trying to do is actually turn that into like a hardy board or more solid material. That way there's no intrusion of any, potential pest entering or damaging the wood that would be on this project. It is a 2x6 wood construction, following the same lap siding. And again, it's just a few other articulations here with some bracket details. This is the overhang. This is kind of where the new proposed off of the west side of the elevation is. And then 4 trusses and the trusses on the roof. And in the end, here's just a couple of the material palettes of what we're proposing to have on the project. Some of the aesthetic features, the metal roof, the gates that would be on the proposed driveway, some lanterns on the sides and on the front facade of the house and on the side, gutters, and the deck that we're going to try to preserve as much as we can, but we understand that during construction, some of it will need to be replaced. The other thing too is keeping the same characters of the windows, the trim, and all the siding that's already there. And last but not least, but the pervious pavers that we are complementing with the retaining walls around the driveway.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Velam, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines. We review the plans that were submitted December 18th, 2024. As we move forward, we do have natural resources here, and we have transportation if you have specific questions for them. On the staff report on page 3, they hit upon some of the issues that we have here as far as scoring on the concrete. He talked about the ribbon every 5 foot in that you put a demising line in there. The fence, the only portion of the fence that is going to be new is the gates. If the vehicular drive from Jatan is approved, they're going to have some gates at that section, and they showed that in the drawings. They didn't talk much about the deck. I think there are additional information about the deck that I know that they have in their presentation. There are some knee brackets on the structure now, and they're incorporating some knee brackets along with the siding, how it goes all the way down to grade. And I believe that the window patterns, he's trying to preserve on the first floor. They're multi-paned over multi-pane, and on the upper level, they're 1/1s. So a little more discussion and direction of the logic that he's bringing forward with the windows. We didn't see any doors that were submitted, that if he has any cut sheets of the doors. And if he could go through one of his wall sections from the ridge to the foundation to call out all the materials in a systematic manner. There is one letter of support that is in your packet. It's the neighbor directly across the street. And the first hearing that they came to, I touched upon the historic fabric that's along Jatan, and I want to do that again in this approach moving forward. So here's, as I stated, is the 1929 Sanborn map. Property in question is here. This is Jatan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you down Jatan on the south side of Jatan, showing you photo documentation what's there. Then I'm going to jump across the street to the north side of Jatan and walk you down there. The reason for this illustration is to show that the single-family structures have access off the primary streets, as I stated, and the larger structures, the multifamily, they enter from the alley. This is on the south side of Jatan, directly across the street from the subject site. They have the apron, they have the linear sidewalk, they have a ribbon, they have the pedestrian approach, couple steps coming up, with a side entrance into the front porch. That's identical to what they're providing this evening. Staying on Jatan, walking ourselves to the west. This is single family. This is a curb cut coming off of Jatan. Continuing down to the west, single family, curb cut with ribbons. Now this is a multifamily. There is no vehicular access off of Jatan. All the access and automobile storage is off the alley. This is fairly new construction that didn't show up on the Sanborn map, but obviously it's multifamily and vehicular access is off the alley. And concluding or terminating at the corner of Jatan on the south side, multifamily, all access is off the rear. Now we're at the end of the block, looking back towards the subject site. We're looking to the east. Looking at the first single-family structure. It was hard to take some pictures. There was a lot of vehicles there. There's a lot of street parking, so I tried to get what we could, but this is the apron, and this is the parking off of Jatan, single family. Fairly large house under construction now, was approved by this board. Curb cut, scored properly, sidewalk, and the ribbons. Working our way back to the east now, single family, curb cut off of Jatan. Single family, curb cut off of Jatan. This is multifamily. As I stated, all vehicular access is off the alley. There is no curb cut. This is moving to the subject site. And directly in front of the subject site, this is where they'll be introducing the curb cut, the apron, depressing this and working it back like a cheese wedge back into the site to retain the earth. This is the pedestrian walkway with a side entrance exactly like the neighbor across the street. So the point of this exercise was to show the historic fabric along Jatan and that this request can be supported, is supported by staff, and that's why the additional information was submitted. If you have any questions, I'd be here, along with natural resources and transportation.
Great, thank you, Ron. Now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak for or against this project? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to go ahead and move to commissioner questions, and I'll start on my right with Commissioner Hammond.
Mr. Lamb, could you talk a little bit about the windows and the patterning and that you have on the project?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Ron. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So just to start from the front facade, just to get back into some of the original details. So if you can see, we have very distinct characteristics of the windows, and we're trying to complement that from the ground floor as you're turning the corner. What was a little bit challenging was the fact that the existing windows on the second floor of the bonus room, or the existing bonus room, has a couple different characters going on. So I didn't want to exactly copy that, and I wanted to give it still a single hung, especially because these are egress windows for bedrooms. So it's part of the reason why they're designed that way. And then the other thing too, I didn't want to put any more muttons or mullions because it was going to be too much going on between the first and second floor.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. No more questions?
I have no questions.
Could you discuss a couple more things? You discussed the skirt on the existing house as going to grade. And then talking about replacing existing wood with hardy board? I'm just didn't get clearly what you were talking about doing there.
So if you can see some of the existing pictures, you could tell that the first floor here, there's no actual access or no, basically the crawl space is completely enclosed in a way, right? But during actually being at the site, looking at what's there, seeing what the damages were done to the existing conditions, we noticed that they are piers and it is raised. The other thing too that gives a hint is because the door is actually elevated as well. So we had to figure out a way to complement the existing, but it can't be wood because then you start creating termites and other varmints coming in through the house. So one way to try to basically relieve that or have that potential hazard is that we will remove that skirt because this deck may get damaged and they'll need to remove it. So we would try to figure out a way to replace some of those sidings that are already there. Because there's nothing here on this existing home that shows that there was an access or like a traditional crawl space that you would have.
Right. I'm still not clear. Are you replacing original wood on the main house with hardy board? Or only at the deck? Or is that only for the addition? I'm trying to clarify where you're using hardy board and where are you replacing existing historic fabric with hardy board?
No, the intent is to try to keep as much as intact. But as a GC comes in and finds any deterioration of the wood or any deterioration of the materials that are already there, we need to figure out what will we be replacing it with. So right now, this is just an intent of a strategy. In case that was to happen, this would be our strategy to mitigate that.
How about on the new addition?
On the new addition, there wouldn't be any need because we're going vertical. It's only the second floor that we're adding to this. This is just in case if anything was to happen.
So there's no first floor addition on this project at all?
Oh, I'm sorry. There is. It's a small piece. So it's here. If you can see right at this, where the door is, this piece right here at this corner, this is where the new addition would happen.
Could you put up the rendering of that elevation?
Sure. So, in essence, it's this corner here we're recapturing. I think the site plan is probably better. Give me a second. So if you can see the piers and what's dashed line in there. So this wall, this area here is getting remodeled. I think right here, this is the existing corner. So all of this is just getting added to the square footage of the house.
So there's a whole lot of first floor addition.
It's roughly, you know, I have it on there. It's about 300 or 400 square feet of addition in there.
And what is going on that, what material is going on that addition? Do you
So-
have drawings that call out what's going on? Do these drawings call out what's going on the addition?
Yes. So on the addition, this is where it's the piers, or if you want to start from the ridge. So from the top, it's the 5E metal crimp, trusses, the 2x6 wall construction, the lap siding that would be very similar to what's already existing on the house,
Made out of what?
wood.
Okay, is that called out on here? Is that called out on the drawings?
Lap siding, yes.
Does it say wood?
It does not right now.
Okay, so by your testimony, you're testifying that there is wood,
Yes,
that the new siding will be wood,
yes,
and that when wood needs to be replaced that's adjacent to grade, that decision on what it'll be replaced with in the future during construction will be made at that time. Will staff be consulted on that
Yes,
during that time, during construction?
Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. We have an inspector that goes out weekly to all the historic districts, and they see the upgrades that have been done. They take the approved stamp plans to the site. If there's any modification, then we have discussion. I tell all the applicants and owners as they come forward, we try to be proactive. If there's gonna be any changes, let's address them prior to the change being done in the field, and then we gotta work backwards.
Okay. And do you have any information on your doors?
on the door, it's, the intent is, it would be like a masonite door that would complement, but not be exactly to the main door. It's more to complement what's with the side light. But I have it's gonna be a masonite door.
But you don't have any details, you're just telling me masonite, but you don't have any details, cut sheets, anything else like that on the door?
I don't have a current cut sheet for that door.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And the existing deck is totally synthetic currently?
Yes.
Right. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, good evening. I appreciate the presentation. Couple of questions and then some comments. So does the site plan show where the gate will be erected?
Yes. So it's kind of blurry in there, but the gates are right here. And this is the proposed gate.
Okay, and is there a rendering that shows the front view with the gate?
No, because we wanted to really show you the driveway all the way through. So it was intentionally not to have the gate on there and just show it through a graphic interpretation of what that gate would look like.
I'd be interested in, again, assuming the driveway is approved, what it looks like with that gate. And the reason is that the gate you've presented in the image, it's very sort of fortress-like versus where often commonly they have railings and it looks a little more open and inclusive. It jarred me a little bit seeing it there, which is why I asked, how far front is it, or is it set far back? So it looks like it's pretty set up close. So I'd just be interested in seeing what it looks like from that front rendering view. Apparently you don't have that available. Okay, so let me turn my attention to the driveway. And I want to just comment on Ron, your photo illustration. Just to make sure the record is fully accurate, you started the presentation one property in, so the property that was missed is a single family residence that has rear alley access. And at the time that property came online, my recollection, I was not sitting on the commission, but that the movement was a trend toward advocating for rear alley access where alleys in the districts have compatible access. And so this is somewhat inconsistent with that, and that particular property is left out of the record discussion. So I think it's fair to ensure that the record accurately reflects there is a single family, a new, just in the last couple of years, single family residence that does have and was trended to have rear access through the alley. And in fact, what had been a driveway was closed off. So let me just reflect. Again, I appreciate all that's been done relative to the parking situation. I think it's clear I was objected to opening a new curb cut, introducing a driveway for this parcel and on this street. But as a public policy perspective, I've sort of carried that theme consistently across our historic districts. So,
Commissioner Post, can I interrupt for a second?
of course.
Do you have any more questions for him, or is this something we can
I
address
can
during-
reserve that to comments. I just wanted to comment and reflect on the activity that's been done to try to articulate some other solutions, and then just clarifying with staff that there is a single-family home along there. So no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we haven't gone far enough yet on the windows here, I think. So what is the material of the new windows that you are intending to install?
It would be wood.
Okay, so it's,
Yeah, it would be a wood, single hung,
okay.
yes.
All right, and the windows I guess on the east and west elevations are not historic, is that correct? They're modern windows that were added somehow?
On, let me see.
So not on I hope I've gotten it right, on the long sides of the house, yeah. So you've got these existing windows
Yes,
under the cross gable in the front, and it seems on both sides these are not the windows that were there originally.
no, it would be intended to try to salvage where it is the existing kitchen right now, to salvage those windows. Hopefully, we could reuse them to replace what was the damaged portion of the house. That's where it would probably go first. If not, then we would try to fit them into where we have it proposed on the side.
But can we look at your section again, just so that we're sure that those windows are going in with a setback in the 2x6 framing? Because I would assume that in the original house, that those windows have a consistent reveal all the way around them.
Sure.
So we just want to make sure that detail is maintained, because your section doesn't seem to say that.
Can you blow up the section?
Might be a little tough to do it from here. Don't know if I.
It's like your upper window is flush with the exterior.
Correct. So it is extruding a little bit further towards the exterior, but that can be arranged to be more appropriate to set back in to the 2x6, yes.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
If you can keep that wall section up, please. I'm going to go back to Commissioner Prokop's question about the hardy board. If we leave it up to the contractor is going to want it all to be hardy board. I think we can agree on that, because it's going to be a longer lasting material. So where, in your opinion, are you proposing? Is it one board? Is it two boards? Is it up to the finished floor?
No, the intent is really just to go up, right beyond the piers. So it's probably about 2 to 3 at maximum. And I can actually note that and be more specific in our drawing sets to state that.
Okay. You had shown a light fixture, but could you just real quick go over where the light fixtures are, where they're located?
And let me see. Can I go back to the? Yeah, okay. So light fixtures, or the wall sconces, would be one on the outside of this door, the side entry door, and then on the front porch on the 2 sides of the windows.
Okay. All right, so let's stay on this right here, and this goes back to Commissioner Post's question about the gate. I know you're not showing the gate, but is it right there at that front corner? Is that where it's gonna hit? Or maybe you can show the other elevation? Like this, is that where it's hitting right there?
Yeah, it would be right next to the old existing structure.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any further questions. All right, so you have up to 5 minutes for rebuttal if you feel like you need it.
Again, Jamie Mayer for the record. We don't have any specific points for rebuttal unless, I don't want to speak for Mr. Lamb in case he does. We do think we've worked with staff a considerable amount with transportation staff and, of course, with architectural review staff. And we think we're providing a design here that is consistent with the surrounding area and with the design guidelines. And we respectfully request this board's approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. With that, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing, and we are going to move to discussion. And I will start with Commissioner Post and say, stop you.
Please go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Not surprising, I will come back to the driveway. Thank you, I appreciate it. And I do appreciate the work that's been done, the competing interests that exist with this site, and that often exist in these dense and tight spaces. I just disagree with the outcome, and I have a couple of thoughts that I want to share to reflect on that. And so just starting with the first is that I think the scale and the configuration of the proposal isn't appropriate because as such it cannot allow for the site to contain the 2 parking spaces needed without having to go and take that public space away from public use. So if it were designed differently, there could be or would be sufficient alley accessible parking, which is preferred in the district, and more importantly, it's what's consistent with the historic nature of this particular site. So creating front entry access is not historic to the site, therefore I don't find it consistent. The second is I just think, again, there's a lot of competing interests, whether it be trees, transportation, safety, all of these things, but the thing that sounds like it's overlooked is the city's responsibility to protect the public's interest. In this case, we would be eliminating the public assets, which would be the sidewalk, the continuity of the sidewalk, a portion of the stormwater grass, the pervious stormwater grass, small as it may be. Every inch seems to count these days in terms of a collection area. And doing that solely for the benefit of a single property owner. And I really do want to emphasize that I consistently support staff's findings and recommendations. I deeply respect their expertise, but I just think in this case it's a bit surprising that there isn't stronger emphasis to protect the assets and the investments that are intended for public purposes. It also includes the historic granite curbs that we pride ourselves on in these districts, and that street tree, which is relatively new. It might be a replacement tree for a grand that had been removed in some other location, so I don't know all the facts about it, but it's a newcomer, and it's unfortunate that it's having to be lost again for the private benefit of this homeowner. The argument, or the assertion, if you will, that there are so many curb cuts on this and driveways on the street, to me is exactly the reason to not allow it. I think the proliferation of this non-historic approach across the district so that houses can become larger or have swimming pools or whatever it is that they're pressing to, that is impetus for us to curtail that activity. Again, I think the public interest is being sacrificed for the private interests of the individual homeowner. And I just think the last point is being intentional about preservation. We spend so much time, rightfully, on the details, as we just did here, but even more so on so many other properties around siding, windows, doors, light fixtures, and all of which greatly benefit the end product. And it's time well spent. The outcomes are better because of it. It matters. But it appears that we seem to spend less attention on protecting and preserving the public spaces that surround these structures, which to me is just as important. So the district is not just each home or building, it's the experience of a unique environment, including an alley system, which is intended to enable and preserve a front-facing, connected, pedestrian-friendly streetscape. And the more we sort of concede the sacrifice of that continuity of streetscape, we're just taking away from the fabric of the district. It's not suburbia, not every house has a driveway. I hope that's not a direction that we're going. I do note the letter of support from the neighbor and the issues that were raised about their turning radius and parking situation, and I agree, it is tricky. It's tricky navigating these streets. It's that way for all of us who live in the historic districts. Spaces are tight, turning radiuses are challenging. That is a part of what it's like to live in these urban dense environments. But this in particular is not a new condition. In particular, this alley is very well maintained. It's been noticed that it's extremely narrow, but it is not extremely narrow. It's standard width alley. And there are other access points in that alley for rear entry access. So because of that, I think that the applicant could have configured or resized their approach. There is a garage there. It's non-conforming. It obviously is problematic for parking, but it could have been rethought, resized, reconfigured on the site, but the applicant simply chose not to. That's certainly their prerogative, but they could have chosen to take a path that would have provided for rear alley access. That's certainly not as easy as clear cutting to the street, but I think it better respects the historic fabric. So just in conclusion, I think because there's no evidence that a driveway or a curb cut existed here at any time in the past, therefore this action in that particular matter is not preserving or restoring an original historic condition. It's destroying it. So I won't be able to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments?
No, go ahead. Brian.
Well, I appreciate your point of view, but I would take a little different view of that. I think that it is appropriate because of as Ron had pointed out, of the vocabulary that's there. What I do think that is missing in this presentation is the articulation of that gate. I think that if the gate were well designed, well thought out, and articulated in a way that would make it the presentation and enhance this drive, I think that could that would be appropriate for this. I just think that the fact that it's not there really kind of detracts from the presentation here, and I just wish it was shown in an appropriate design for the house to really enhance it, and enhance this front elevation, because I think it can. There's many times when I'm walking around or driving around that I'll see a gate that is similar to this, that's really well done, and I can really appreciate that and what it adds to the house. And so I just think that's kind of a missing part on here that would really kind of bring the argument forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, thank you, Carol, for your comments and caring. It's ironic, the house that you bring up that was just built within the past few years that removed a curb cut and removed a driveway, because I watched that presentation. My friend's house is right down the street, and that presentation is what inspired me to actually call Ron and say, hey, I need to get on the board, because they did it solely to increase the size of the house as much as possible. And they went basically setback to setback, and they couldn't build the size of the house they wanted without taking that curb cut out and that driveway out. And so I think it's appropriate, again, given the the actual rhythm of the other single-family houses up and down the street, including the house across the street from this one, the owner of which wrote in, that it's appropriate to take the cars off the street and trade that curb cut and that driveway that that house used to have and put it across the street on this person's. I think it's an even switch, and it doesn't impact or deteriorate from the historic nature of the neighborhood as much as that new house did. I think this is a good trade. I would not be opposed to putting a condition on this proposal that the tree that's being removed to be replaced on the property, that the gate be redesigned with a little more sensitivity and architectural intent. I think that would greatly improve the neighborhood, the pedestrian experience of the house. And yes, the windows have to be recessed considerably. And basically the comment I would put would just that they'd be recessed to match the existing, to the existing depth. But otherwise, I'm sympathetic to the situation. They do not have as deep a lot also as the new house has a much deeper lot, which allowed them to put the parking in the back and still have a giant house on the property. This site is much smaller. So I think those conditions we can discuss and move ahead with.
Commissioner?
So generally, I'm in favor of the application. I mean, I think I commend the homeowners for having gone through Hurricane Milton, which was not easy for anybody, and coming forward and saying, we're going to build that sunroom exactly as it was, and so y'all don't need to worry about it. We know it got damaged. We're going to put it back, and I appreciate the homeowner recognizing that and not making that an issue for us or taking it as an opportunity to say, well, I'm going to totally change what I was going to do. So I think they need to be commended for that, and it's a shame that that happened to them, along with damage that others experienced. But appreciate that they made that effort and stepped forward with that. The parking doesn't bother me. I just think there are lots of other homes on that street that have the parking. You're putting it exactly like how the other homes have it. I think we do have to balance the public and the private. I think there's been shown enough evidence that the private use in the backyard should be provided to this homeowner as well, whether that be a pool in the future or something else. That benefit should be afforded to this historic home as it has been afforded to the other historic homes on this street. So I'm in favor of it. I'm okay with saying you have to have a tree and a nicer gate, and put the windows, set back. And with that, I would support the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers?
In support of Commissioner Post's dissertation about the way this, and maybe that wasn't that was not the perfect word, but the provision of driveways is a suburban thing that was happening at the same time as approximately as the way as Hyde Park was being built, the later portions of it. And so and then we've gone ahead and we've changed it so that there are lots of turning radii, and all sorts of suggestions by traffic that makes it easier for us to get our big cars into the backs of our houses. And so we need to make sure that, but then the alley doesn't work, so we can just abandon it and let everybody have a driveway. And it is very difficult, of course, because there are so many other houses on the street that have a driveway. In this case, I'm going to fall on and on the side of those who say, well, so many other houses have it, and it's a mixed neighborhood that has two different ways of accessing. And those alleys were looked at as, this is the old way that we did things. And many people would be horrified by the fact that you drove up to the house and, and you entered from the front, that shouldn't have happened. In the same way that they were horrified by the fact that people put their trash cans in the front. It's sort of like, this should not be done. And we do it now, and we put up with those losses. But I'm hearing that we need to condition this, and I'm looking at my fellow commissioners now, we need to condition the material of the exterior siding, the window detailing to match the existing, a gate detail that is more in keeping with the bungalow style, I'm going to call it that, it's sort of that way. It's more in keeping with the style of the house, and that I believe it was a crepe myrtle that was taken down. I'm looking, I can't ask anymore. That the street tree be replaced. And with that,
Are you writing a motion?
I'm writing the motion.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if we're ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented in this public hearing in ARC 24-0000336 for the property located at 1703 West Jeton Avenue, because based upon finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design. I've lost my train here. Okay, for the property located at 1703 West Jeton with the following conditions. That the architect should coordinate the use of hardy board and wood siding with staff, as well as the window detailing, which shall match the existing, that they shall provide a gate detail more in keeping with the design of the house, and that the street tree shall be replaced.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Before there's a second, I have a question, since I'm the newbie. So in getting the additional detailing for the gate, how does that happen with staff that we're going to be is going to be acceptable to the board, or does it just bypasses that and it stays in the staff's
It
hands?
stays in staff. We simply say what was presented was not acceptable, it needs to be redesigned to be more architecturally sensitive. And then it's between the applicant and the staff to solve that problem.
Okay, great.
But they can certainly look to precedent.
Yeah,
So there's, we can.
Did I just hear a second?
I second it. Yeah.
Okay.
Just, pardon me, just to clarify, based upon the finding of fact, the proposed plan is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines.
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
reminding me of that.
So the applicant, do you understand the conditions, and do you agree with the conditions?
Yes,
before
I
we
do,
vote?
thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion on this motion? All right, not seeing any, we will move to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, against? All right, motion passes. Congratulations.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Velam, staff with Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is ARC-24-000427/REZ-24-00000112. This is for the address of 509 South Hyde Park Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The building on site was constructed 1980, is deemed non-contributing. The underlying zoning currently is a PD. The request is for a recommendation. They're going to get an outcome this evening, and they already have it scheduled for City Council next Thursday, the 16th, to be heard at City Council. So your recommendation has to come with some merit, put together some kind of a motion, either for or against, through the discussion, and have it in some kind of bullet item form. When it goes to council, when it's convoluted, sometimes it gets lost. The more specific you are in your motion moving forward, the more merit it has, and City Council could understand the project moving forward and your concerns. So as I stated, this is for a recommendation to rezone from PD to PD. Your duties and powers are on page 3. I want to read it out loud, and then I'll reiterate it again when I come up to do my staff report. With regards to the application for rezoning, land use changes, or comprehensive plan amendments, to review the recommended and reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance. I'm going to start with the 29 Sanborn map. The highlighted red is the local district. I circled the subject area. It's in the northwest quadrant. You have Bay Shore leading up through here, and then our northern boundary. This is our vicinity map, showing the concentration of contributing structures and non-contributing structures. And an aerial. For ease of the photo presentation, I'm going to walk you down the street, down Hyde Park Avenue. Then we're going to turn on De Leon. Then we're going to go back down Cedar to review all the elevations and some of the surrounding sites. So this is that north elevation, looking from Hyde Park Avenue. It's a single brick building, built in 1980. As I stated, it's non-contributing, really no ornamentation. As you look in some of the parking area, you have Hyde Park Avenue here. You have that facade that faces Hyde Park, which is here with some of the angled parking. As you look down Hyde Park Avenue and you're approaching Davis Island, you have some period structures across the street, which is church. This is so you get a sense of place. We looked at kind of this facade and environment. Now we're going to look at what's on De Leon. It's nondescript. The building almost comes to the property line. There's some pedestrian approach. There's new construction to the left of this. That was approved by this board probably 20 years ago. Which was right here. Now we're going to look down Cedar. There's a contributing structure down Cedar, which is here. And then you have the extended parking area for the subject request. You have a couple of curb cuts on Cedar. Working Cedar to the north, you have this non-contributing structure. And just to conclude, we were here, kind of walked around, came around here, saw that new construction I talked about, the period structure, the additional parking. So that's kind of like the lay of the land there. These pictures will be here if you need to review them anymore. At this time, we'll have the agent address the board.
Good evening, Truett Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive. With me is Addie Clark, and we're here in honor to represent Tampa General Hospital. They're the contract purchaser of this property. As Ron showed, and I think Addie's got another photo, it's currently used as a Medi weight loss clinic, and which is a grandfathered use because in 2005, the site was rezoned to PD for a 110-foot multifamily tower. And so really that existing building is out of conformance with the current zoning. And what TGH would like to do is to use that existing building, we're not going to intensify it, not going to make any changes to the site, for an imaging center on the main campus, which is right across, let's see. So again, this is similar to what you just saw from Ron, but what I wanted to point out is as Hyde Park Avenue continues down, you can see the entrance to the Davis Island Bridge, which gets you immediately over to TGH's main campus. And so on the TGH main campus, they have the Furman Family Imaging Center. And so all people that are users of the hospital, but also if my son was to break his arm, have to go to that imaging center. And so what TGH has a critical need to do is put off-site the situation of my son breaking an arm so they can use that imaging center for more acute needs and offlay some of that demand onto the main campus. But since this has current PD zoning for this tower, we have to come back basically after the fact and grandfather in the existing building that's there, and also this use for medical offices, what it's deemed to be when you look at the city's use category. So that's our intent. Again, there will be no intensification of this building, no change to its current configuration, and really from a use standpoint, very similar to what's currently there. It has the actual clinic designation, which is a far higher traffic generator than medical office. But Randy Cohen is our traffic expert. He has his report, which is in the record, and basically his finding is the difference in traffic between what we're proposing and what's already there is negligible. And so that is the nature of our request. Our review did trigger a re-review from site planning and zoning that initially triggered, I think it was 5 waivers. 3 of those are existing conditions, so only 2 which have been triggered by having to go back through the process. Addie Clark is going to run through those, but we're here to answer any questions. I understand there are some people that are here to speak. Unfortunately, after sending the notice out when we first filed, notice again for this hearing and posting the property, this is the first we're hearing from anybody, so eager to hear what they have to say and hopefully address those concerns as well. Because we view this as a very benign request where really we're just blessing what's already there. So that's the general nature of the request. Addie, I'll let you run through some of the variances. Thank you.
Good evening, for Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive. So going here, Church did a great job of kind of showing you the existing structure. You can see the Medi Weight Loss Clinic there, and how the request is simply to use medical office as that allowable use. And like he said, we're going to go over 2 waivers really quickly. One really based on existing conditions due to the adaptive reuse of the building, and then one currently proposed due to parking. So here, this is the waiver due to the existing site to reduce the drive aisle width for perpendicular parking. And that is more so shown here, highlighted in yellow. So that's the existing parking today. It's just a little bit more narrower than what the code requires. But of course, vehicles can get in there and out of there efficiently. And then going on to the parking waiver justification, again, TGH is the one proposing this, and of course they have studied operations at their facilities, and they want to always make sure that their staff and their doctors and their patients can properly park and make sure that they are, operating efficiently and being able to find that parking when there is a 10-year-old with a broken arm who needs to go get their MRI or something done, or an x-ray. So again, this is a unique use, being an imaging center, so there will be fewer patients per hour compared to a typical medical office where you go to get some Tamiflu or something like that. So 2 patients per hour compared to a typical medical office, which will have about 4 to 5 patients per hour. And again, Randy Cohen, like Truett mentioned, is our traffic expert. He had a report showing industry standards and use-specific data that concludes that the provided parking of 50 spaces is sufficient. And then also it's important to note that there is a church across the street, just on the other side of South Hyde Park Avenue, where they do have an agreement for parking. And due to that being a church use, and then due to this proposed medical office use, those peak times when the demand for the church and the demand for the medical office use are definitely not conflicting. So this will not be open, of course, on Sundays when the church is at its peak time for parking. So definitely wanted to mention that. And then also there is on-street parking, I believe Ron had mentioned that, along South Hyde Park Avenue. And then here's the existing structure again, no changes to that. And we're available for any questions.
Commissioners, good evening. Ron Vila, I'm a planner for Historic Preservation. Staff finds this application is consistent with the City of Tampa Code ordinances with Chapter 27113A2J. Once again, your duties and powers are in regards to the application for rezoning, to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance. This is in front of you, as they stated. They added a use to the underlying use that's there. It triggered some waivers. We do have Sam Thomas with zoning here. If you have any specific questions, he's here to address those with you. I'm here to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Looks like we have people in the audience who wish to speak for or against this project. If that's the case, when you approach, you'll have 3 minutes. You'll need to identify yourself.
They answered our questions. We don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience, sir? Yeah. And then, sir, have you been sworn?
Yes, I have. Okay, I'm Patrick Chimino. I'm the chairman of the Historic Hyde Park Neighborhood Association Land Use Committee, and I think that as this proposal was presented in the documentation, it mentions clinical space, so I'm a little confused tonight that they're talking about just an imaging center. That was listed, so I'm going to present as I interpreted from the information online. This parcel in question lies in the historic district, and there's concerns about the parking waiver. We have extensive experience in the historic district with parking issues, mobility, and parking. I will tell you, it's a problem. And I have extensive experience, as it turns out, with overseeing medical practices of all kinds, and parking can be a major dissatisfier. Now, I thought to myself, well, I understood this was going to be a concierge practice. It doesn't matter what it is. I thought that minimizing parking was a risk I wouldn't take. That's none of my business. What I am concerned about is the neighbors and the impact on them. And so basically, you look at, I've studied Medical Group Management Association data and American Medical Group Association, and you do use those as guidelines. But guess what? Every situation is unique. Once rezoned medical, this building is going to be allowed to be a lot of different things, and it makes a lot of difference. Now, in the medical, as the city has, as best I can understand, they don't differentiate with specialties or anything like that. But I guarantee you, an orthopedic or pediatric practice generates a lot more parking demand than maybe an internist. However, they're considered in the same boat, and this is asking for less than what would be considered the city code. I said they discounted diagnostic space. I think it's, in my experience, I thought they were doing clinical space based on their original proposal. Diagnostic space can eat up a lot of turnover too. And at the same time, you have clinical. So it just depends on the volumes there. Inadequate parking is rampant in the historic district, and it creates a hardship for the community. It also impacts safety, and I think that's not been mentioned here. So I do have issues with this, and I will tell you, I don't know what happens online. I've looked at a lot of documents, but to change from when they were asking for a concierge medical practice with diagnostic to diagnostic, is a substantive change, but it doesn't change my presentation because I'm going to present to you as my reservations lie. And I would say that the biggest issue is the parking waiver. And that's a burden for the neighbors, and it's hard to monitor.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioner and staff. My name's Michael Pobat, and I live in the Spanish Town Creek area of South Tampa. I'm relatively new to Tampa, and I will put this as delicately as possible. The traffic and parking in South Tampa stinks. In 2023, Spanish Town Creek was designated as a historic site. Please consider parking and traffic in this request to help keep our neighborhood a quality place to live. I'm here really speaking on behalf of several neighbors who have called and expressed their concern for the parking and the traffic, which is already really tight in the Spanish Town Creek area. Thank you for the privilege of your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Sir, go ahead.
Hi, evening. My name is Joe Hafner. I have an architectural practice on the next building to the north of this one. I've been in Hyde Park for over 50 years. This is the worst PD ever. I have a legal question, if it could ask that before my clock begins, because I think it has really bearing on this case.
You're just going to have to make your presentation. And
Okay. All right, if you've gone through what's online for this case, there's a lot of errors, omissions, and misleadings in the presentations. What he has on paper, which way this goes. Is that the right way? They're using the 2005 PD that was approved and never built by a different property owner to bootstrap this project and also a project for this site that was presented between this board and City Council in 2017 for a 15-story ALF building that was denied by City Council. And all those requirements and setbacks are in this proposal. They've got a side yard setbacks down to 5 feet, 1 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet. When you look at the drawings, they're 40 feet, 35 feet, 20 feet, and 5 feet right now. They tell you they're not going to change the building height or the size, but all that's allowable once you pass this. You've got no control over it, just the same as you have no control over what type of medical facility this becomes. So you're giving away 40 to 50 parking spaces to these guys to run a clinic on it. When you look at the clinic in the zoning book, there's 7 spaces per 1,000 square foot, not 6. So it should actually increase. The other thing, that when you get to the correct numbers on it, they're using net numbers instead of the gross square footage for the building, which should be 14,078. So all their math is off on this stuff. They actually have a shortage of 35 parking spaces given the 50 that's already there. Now, of the 85 that's required by law, ADA law and Florida Building Code law, 4 of those have to be handicap spaces. You can't give away handicap spaces, especially for medical use. So that takes away some of the 40 spaces or 50 spaces they have on site to provide the extra space needed for handicap parking and accessibility. On top of that, there's been no provision for any delivery space that's required on it. There's a lot wrong with this whole proposal. It needs to go back, it needs to be redone and not sent to City Council because it doesn't fit the neighborhood, and you're not just putting 35, 40 cars a day, you're doing that by the hour because MRI machines and CAT scans are booked 24/7 and they have people going in and the type of doctors they have waiting rooms full of people. Thank you.
thank you very much.
You want this to stay?
You can leave it up there.
Is it for the record?
Ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Gail Likes.
I do apologize, you do have to be sworn in prior.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
My name's Gail Likes. My address is 3808 Barcelona, but I'm one of the owners of the property adjacent to the north of the building. My father built the building in 1981, about the same time Mickey and me built the CPA office. And it is accurate that these two are non-contributing structures, but I think I've been in real estate for 40 years, and one of the key components of Hyde Park is expansive lawns, mature oak trees, open space, as well as the charming buildings. So it's a non-contributing structure, but it is providing a lot of green space. There's beautiful mature oak trees on there, and it does not meet the zoning code because it needs 4 waivers. That means in 4 ways it falls short of the zoning. I mean, people like to say it meets it, but we have a few waivers. That means it does not meet it. They want to be able to cut down, I think the tree ratio goes down 39% more than the things they should be able to do. They're losing 40 parking spaces. They're narrowing the buffer to protect the people from seeing the cars. All of this is compiled to make it a concrete jungle if they want to later. And I don't think, my understanding of the zoning code is it's currently an office building. It was built as a CPA office building, so they're going from a CPA office building to a medical office building, which requires far more parking. And I do agree with one of the men that said that is the biggest problem, but also the green space, the density. I've been to Tampa General recently. Have a picture of that place in your mind. There's no parking that's adequate. It's a big concrete mess. They have no trees. It's glaring masonry. That is totally opposed to what Hyde Park's all about. And you can say it's the edge of the district and, oh, there's non-contributing structures around it, but it's in the district. And the more people you let ink into the district, it's degrading the whole district. To walk around Hyde Park, and if you're talking about letting them do this, you might as well get rid of the district. It's just like the zoning code. Either keep the rules or get rid of the book. I really strongly oppose, just hope you vote totally against this and send it back to the drawing board. And the reason Mr. Gardner had met with us with a previous contract on this property, and we all sat down and talked about it, but we weren't called about it, is why we weren't telling you that we were opposed to it early. Previously, we were called earlier.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you all for spending your time doing this. I have not responded to this earlier because we had a little bit of trouble where we live, which is 83 Adelia Avenue on Davis Island. But that's where I live. But my office is right down the street from this place, where the proposal is, at 600 South Magnolia Avenue in the old Edgewater office building. And I've been there for quite a long time. And I'm very familiar with the entire area. It's just about a block away. I have several concerns, not as technical as some of the previous ones. One is traffic congestion, both in the Hyde Park area and for ingress onto Davis Island. We have so much traffic. Y'all may not be aware of the carpool problems at the intersection of DeLeon and Magnolia for Gorey in the middle of the afternoon that back up all the way to Bayshore and all the way up to Platte and pretty much over to the Davis Island Bridge. There is lots of pressure on the parking in that area. Even with all the work from home, parking spaces are still very valuable in that area and very difficult to get. I am particularly worried about ingress to Davis Island for the ambulances. We see ambulances come down to Leon all the time, and nobody has spoken about the need for a delivery bay for delivering the supplies that an office like that is going to require. We cannot afford to have either Hyde Park Avenue or DeLeon obstructed by deliveries. It would be a terrible thing to have an ambulance stopped or just to have people have difficulty getting around that area. It's already very intense. I mentioned the delivery bay. Let's see, they're all narrow streets. You all know that, except for Hyde Park. And Hyde Park is narrower in front of this particular building because there's a turn lane to turn right onto the Leon right there. So they don't have on-street parking. And any agreement with the church for extra parking would be terminable pretty much anytime the church wanted to. So you can't count on that in the long term to provide extra parking. And it's also a fairly dangerous street to try to get across, if any of y'all have gone across to get on the bridge, or even to go to go right on the Leon. So those are my concerns. I don't think that they have been spoken to in the proposal that's on the table right now.
Ma'am, can we get your name for the record?
Linda Hanna, Lindahanna.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Teresa Wadja, and yes, I've been sworn in. I did not come with anything prepared, but I appreciate everyone's thoughts and comments tonight. So I just asked for a few considerations while we think through a few things. One, I live at 413 West De Leon, so I am the building right next door, along with my fellow neighbors. So I really do ask you to think through the parking. It can be very strenuous at times. Though we have garages right outside our building, most of us have to use that parking, and sometimes whether it be the church or whether it be the office building, sometimes they take our parking alone. I will also ask you to take consideration between our building as well as the building in question here. There is an alley, per se, for lack of better words, that as you come down that, if you exit out of their building, it is a steep decline. The UPS trucks, the FedEx trucks hit that all the time, loud noises scrape the bottom of their cars. If they would be using any type of semis or large trucks, we're going to have more strain on this driveway. So I do ask you to take consideration of that. And then my last comments would just be, since we live there, thinking through the Saturday, I heard that Sunday, did not hear about Saturday, so I may just have missed that. Just the hours of operation to keep for those that are living there day in, day out, 24/7. So I appreciate all your considerations and thoughtfulness of everybody here. Thank you so much.
So looking at the crowd, do we have anybody else? Okay. Seeing no one else, we were going to start with questions from the commissioners, and I'll start on my left this time.
If the agents could just quickly go over the parking numbers again for us so we can keep those in our mind.
So Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive. So what's being proposed today is 50 parking spaces, which is about 3.6 per 1,000 square foot ratio, which is actually higher than what Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is ITE, Parking Generation Manual 6th edition requires for the average parking demand for medical offices. So just want to point that out. So those 50 parking spaces are what's being proposed.
Okay, so you're proposing 50. How many do you have right now?
I believe 48 exist right now. I'd have to double check that. There is some squeezing and some creation of compact spaces where possible.
Could you put up the site plan again?
Do it on there.
And again, as Addie pulls that up, what she's going to show is existing. The only change will be that through a closer look at this, we're going to net 2 additional parking spaces than what currently exists there today.
Okay, I'm seeing 1 handicap space. Is that correct?
I believe there were multiple.
And while you're counting, if you could count the number of compact spaces. Because it looks like everything behind the building that is not angled is compact.
So here, just first question first, the 2 handicap spaces right there. And then all of these ones over here are compact. We are allowed up to 65% per code of compact parking spaces. So I'd have to do a quick little count really fast to see what that is, but we are not exceeding that 65% that's allowed per code.
Okay, so you're showing 2 spaces that are not marked as handicapped in the front, and 1 space that is marked as handicapped in the back. Is it possible that those 2 spaces in the front are more for deliveries? Because they don't appear to have been, I'm just questioning why they're not marked as handicapped.
Just to be clear, you're talking about this one and this one?
No, on the upper right corner, I thought that you gestured to the 2 spaces in the upper right corner of the site.
Just so we're on the same page, I'll show you.
Yeah, those 2. Oh, I can see it. Yeah, now I can see it. So there are those. So those are the 2 spaces.
Correct.
Okay, I missed the one on the upper right. Okay, and then that 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And it appears as though you've got 20 handicap spaces. And what's the total, 20 compact spaces. And the total number of spaces that you're showing on the site plan is how many?
50.
50. Okay. And so you're asking for a waiver for how many?
Yeah, so 83 are required per code, and we are providing 50, so that is just about a 40% waiver.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thanks.
I'll just continue with that. I wanted to better understand the implications of each of the waivers. So you're going from PD residential to PD office, biz, medical, et cetera, which is therefore then triggering the waivers.
review.
Right now, this site, I'll say, is with the waivers that exist for residential, is that accurate? Or were any waivers required for the residential PD?
There were waivers required from the PD. I think why it got eliminated or got reduced down to 2 or those were prior waivers granted that will continue to run with the property. So these are 2 additional ones. The main one being the parking, which the current site is generated, as I've mentioned, Randy Cohen's proposal or conclusion is what's being proposed is only negligibly more intense than what's existing. But what happened was because of the rezoning, we triggered a whole new review on parking.
So could you just, I appreciate that, could you just then run through, so today it's sitting with 2 waivers to qualify for PD residential. You want to move to PD office, biz, medical, et cetera, which you want to maintain the 2 waivers and then add 2 more. So can you just walk us quickly through?
Sure. So the 2005
And will you
approval.
walk through, will you put the site plan back up?
Sure.
please?
I think we're good on the parking.
Okay.
At least I am. You're providing 50. In order, PD office, biz, commercial, med would require 83.
Correct.
Okay, so I got that difference. What are the other?
Yeah, I think
3?
your question's a great one, and I think that's kind of what's being conflated here a little bit, is the 2005 approval is a property right that will continue and run with this property. What we're asking for today is basically an option B, which is to allow the existing building to stay in place and allow TGH to have its imaging center here. What that triggered was the additional 2 waivers, the primary one being the reduction in parking.
Can you just catalog, just so,
The other?
just catalog
Sure.
the 4 waivers?
Okay.
Yep. So from 2005, the waiver request that was previously approved was to increase the allowable tree removal from 50% to 89%. So that was done in 2005.
And I'll interrupt there. There is absolutely no plan that TGH has to remove these trees, but that is a property right that exists and will be maintained. If TGH needed, for whatever reason, which is highly unlikely, to sell this property in the future, a developer could take that 2005 approval and that waiver still runs with the land and is granted, but they have no intentions to remove any trees at all.
Would you repeat that one, please?
Say that again?
Repeat that.
So the 2005 approval is what granted the waiver of the tree reduction. That will remain in place.
I understand that. Repeat the tree reduction waiver.
Oh,
that was
sure.
approved.
The percentages?
Oh, sure. So that one is, oh, I just had it, sorry. From 50% to 89%.
That is not a new request. That's a request that's already been granted by city council.
So, so at PD residential, if it stayed as is, they would have the right to remove up to 50%. Were any trees removed since 2005?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure if the storm
Right,
knocked anybody.
putting that aside.
No.
Okay. So, in order then to qualify for PD office biz medical, you have to push to 89. Like what's triggering your, is that underlying PD is?
That's just staying in place. We'll call it sitting on the back burner.
Yeah.
But what we're here
50%.
for today, it has no tree removals at all. It's really to just bless the existing site, or it is to
Right,
bless the
but-
existing site.
Removal at 50% or 89% as it stands today?
As it stands today, city council approved from 50 to 89%.
So with no changes, somebody could buy this property and remove 89% of the trees on the property?
If they proceeded with that residential development,
Right, made no changes as today, said
they would
we
have
don't
to,
want-
no request from city would need to be made. You could submit for permits today on that. That is a,
But
that is a property
For
right.
clarification, you're asking for that to remain, so then TGH could do the same thing.
I don't,
Well, not whether you think they will, but they could.
yeah, I would say that the way that we're doing this is an option A and an option B. If it's option A, it's 50 to 89%. What we're asking for is option B, which is just grandfather in what's existing.
If I may, I think, again, please correct, you're actually asking to move from PD residential to PD office biz medical, which if that is approved, you can no longer then, as of right, go and build that residential.
No, they're maintaining the residential approval and then supplementing with an additional approval, grandfathering this use in. So it's option A, option B are both approved uses.
I'm just confused about option A, option B, because
Yeah.
it seems like you're asking for option A and B.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not an A or B.
So
it's
maybe
an A and B.
explain each of what exists today.
Yep.
And then what y'all are asking for, and I think that will clarify.
So I think we're kind of going.
Okay, the contract.
Well, we have a zoning staff
That-
member.
that's-
Yeah.
Okay.
May I just stay on my
Yeah,
my
go
Q and
ahead.
A, sorry.
All right. You sure?
It-
Yeah. Sure.
May I be, I think perhaps you come up, if you could you just finish discussing the next two, so we'll have all four and sort of the context, and then I think the zoning expertise could clarify. So we've got parking, we've got tree removal, what are the other two?
And then, so the other, there's actually just one other one, so we were informed today that, transportation said that for the drive aisle to go down to 12 feet is actually allowed by code, so that one wasn't a waiver, is not a waiver now, so just kinda wanna wipe that one to
You
just
wanna
kinda
point
clarify.
that out then?
Yeah, so that is, so that was number 3, which is now gone. So then the other one is about the, and then also there's natural resources waiver is no longer needed, since that's an existing condition. And so the other parking, or not parking waiver, but the waiver that we were discussing was about the perpendicular parking for the drive aisle from going from 24 feet to 20 feet.
Which that is, to be clear, and again, this is existing, this area right here.
So reducing perpendicular drive aisle, was it from what to what?
From 24 feet to 20 feet.
Okay, so is the implication of that the reduction in buffer that was discussed? Where are we looking?
So the buffer is actually no longer a waiver either. That's referring to the vehicle use buffer here along South Hyde Park Avenue.
And why is that no longer a waiver?
So we were informed by Natural Resources that that was no longer a waiver since it was an existing condition. Sam can speak
Okay,
probably a little bit more
what's
intelligently
the-
about that than I can.
Sure. What's the width of the buffer right now? What's the current state?
I believe it's about 4 feet.
And it's your intention to maintain that?
Maintain it as is.
Okay, great, thank you. So, yes, now maybe
Okay.
we can clarify.
Sam, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Sam Thomas, Development Coordination. So we want to know what uses will be approved and how the PD will work versus the current PD, correct?
Yes.
So the 2005 PD, when this is rezoned to a new PD, is gone. You know, with the current site plan that we have here, the uses that are requested are office, business, professional, and medical office. If the multifamily was included in this, then that option could still be on the table. But my understanding is that this will be the new PD on the site plan, and no, like, multifamily will not be on the option anymore. There was an interpretation on a rezoning that we're currently working on by legal, that if you have previous waivers that have been approved on a site, and you're not requesting the same uses, then those waivers do not carry over to a new PD that you're requesting. So the tree retention waiver would not carry over because they're not requesting multifamily again. They're requesting office, business, professional, so that waiver would not carry over.
Right, what you've described is how I understood it, but the applicant is suggesting differently. Mr. Gardner, you're saying.
I'll jump in here real quick.
Sorry.
I've done these both ways, where there is a maintained option 1 and option 2. We're fine with, the TGH would be giving up a lot, obviously. But this is a critical need, and so if this is approved, then they would be giving up the option 1. That's fine.
And at the same time,
So the the multifamily would go away.
there could be an option. I have seen in the past where there's a current PD approved on a site, and then they're coming in for a new PD that a note is added onto the site plan that you could use the old PD.
But is that note on this plan?
No, that note is not on this plan.
And that obviously is not the business that TGH is in, and so that's fine.
Not yet. Okay, so one other for staff then. Let's assume that the path is as you've described, that if we approve or recommend approval and it is ultimately approved to become PD office biz medical, it would eliminate the prior PD and all of its rights. And then if TGH or subsequent owner opts to do something entirely different, do they have to now come back again? Like, can you just clarify just again for the record, what would happen if, in this case, they're not wanting to make changes to the footprint of the building, but in some future state, some future owner may? Just clarify for us what would happen downstream.
So theoretically, in the future, if this is approved for office, business, professional, and medical office, with these setbacks and this FAR and this square footage, with this height limit and these setbacks, theoretically, a substantial change application could be processed administratively to bring this back in the future, maybe demolish this building, and then build another office, business, professional, or medical office, but it would have to abide by the setbacks approved under this PD, the maximum height, the maximum FAR, and square footage. And that would have to go through an administrative process to be able to do that.
Okay.
What are those maximum heights and maximum square footages that are included in this document? Because we can't read all the fine print.
So the setbacks requested currently for the building that is existing is 20 feet to the north, 5 feet to the south, 40 feet to the east, and 35 feet to the west. And the requested maximum building height is 110 feet, which was approved under the 05 PD.
What's the square footage, the max square footage?
Max square footage is 13,804 square feet at a 0.27 FAR.
Okay, so the 110 feet maximum height is irrelevant.
Means nothing.
Yeah.
That means nothing.
You'd have to be
Okay.
a 6 by 6, a little tiny building.
Got it.
I'm sorry, just one last question. Assuming again, if the 2005 is vacated, if you will, by a subsequent approval for PD office biz medical, what would happen to the tree removal?
The tree removal waiver would not carry over.
Because that's not in this document.
It would, right now, when the site plan goes to city council next week, These waivers will be listed on the site plan, but in my revision sheet that I'll provide to council, it will, and on my staff report, I will only have 2 waivers listed on the staff report. And then between first and second reading, the applicant will update their site plan to only show the 2 waivers that they presented on this evening.
So just to clarify then, what would be the rights and obligations relative to the existing trees on the site?
The existing trees would remain as is. They would not have a waiver to reduce the tree retention from 50% to, or to be able to remove 89% of the trees versus 50%.
But the 50% removal would remain?
And not to interrupt Sam, but I just wanted for efficiency standpoint to state that we're fine with giving up that waiver. So the 50% is what's allowed. What was approved in 2005 was increasing from 50 to 89. So we would
50
be
is
back
the
to
base.
50, correct?
89 was the waiver.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay.
I had a quick one. How did this building get built? Under this existing PD?
The PD was approved in 2005. As the applicant stated, the building was built in the 1980s. I would imagine that, I know the zoning before this PD was residential office 1. I would assume the building was probably built prior to that residential office 1 zoning. And then zoning conformance probably
And then
came
just
through,
grandfathered.
and the majority of the area is RO1, and that's probably how it got that zoning before the 2005 PD.
If you don't mind, I'll add to that because I've had been in this experience before. So basically you had a building that was built in 1980, completely appropriate with zoning code at the time. Then 2005 comes along. They didn't think about, 2005, the parties were going great. And so they didn't think at all about maintaining the existing, let's just build this 110-foot multifamily building, which then throws out of conformance the existing building that's there. So now what we're doing is putting aside the multifamily building and just going back to basically the use that was approved before.
Okay. Is there anywhere in the PD that states what percentage of the existing building will be used for imaging?
No, and the problem there, and I don't know if legal, we have had some discussions there. So there's 2 big medical uses, medical office, medical clinic. This actually gets to one of Mr. Chimino's comments. One, we never altered our application at all. It's been the same. Medical office is far less intense than medical clinic. What we're requesting is medical office, not medical clinic, if that answers your question.
But there was a discussion as part of the presentation of a reduction in the quote-unquote net square footage because of equipment.
Oh, got it.
And so
Yes.
you're claiming some sort of reduction justification because of the introduction of imaging equipment.
Correct.
So I'm asking, how much
So
of that imaging equipment is actually going to be installed?
this is where we run into some issues with legal, because we can ask for medical office. The city rightfully doesn't want to be in the business of policing every square footage in your building of how much is this and how much is that.
Understood.
And so I don't know if we have, what I would be telling you are generalities. I think it was 20%.
Yeah.
20 to 30% would be the actual imaging equipment.
Because,
This is just based off of TGHs, but really will have no impact from the zoning standpoint because all we can ask for is medical office or medical clinic, but we went the medical office route because it's less
I
intense.
understand, but you could also ask for a waiver in the square footage by designating a certain percentage of square footage be removed from the gross square footage because of the medical equipment that's going to be installed, and that would be baked. That would be baked into the plan, and I think that would alleviate certain people's concerns about the reduction in parking because you are not having that level, that many clinical spaces or office spaces when it's all designated for equipment.
You can definitely mention that, but I think the city legal is going to fall on, you're asking for medical office or you're asking for medical clinic.
Okay.
We're not going to police that.
We can't
used.
muddy that water.
Correct.
Okay. Could you address also, one of the commenters mentioned that you were using net square footage numbers versus gross square footage numbers in the parking calculation? And is there a discrepancy there?
On that, Randy Cohen is our traffic expert. He's been doing this for 40 years. He has submitted this to transportation. They've reviewed it and blessed it. So I don't know whether he used gross or net. But he met with city transportation got his methodology,
Okay.
did his study, issued his report, and they find it to be conforming.
Do the shown ADA spaces meet current ADA code? Because I don't think you can put ADA spaces on diagonals like that anymore, and there's no clearance, there's no 5-foot clearance aisle next to the one that's on the diagonal. And does that need to be
I don't know the
reconsidered?
precise answer to that, but this plan has been blessed by transportation. And so my guess is Randy went over this, Mr. Cohen went over this plan with transportation, and they said the 2 spaces can remain. The 2 handicap spaces can remain.
All right. Were there hours of operation included in this? PDA?
They're not.
There are none.
Again, straight medical clinic, that'll be governed by the code.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
So just to address the issues raised by some of the folks who came forward, so was the property intended to be for concierge medical services ever, or how?
No, and I
what's
know
that?
that's in the report, but it's always, we've not modified our application. I don't know if that's a ITE type interpretation or what that is, but TGH's intent from the beginning has been to fulfill this imaging center need that they have.
Excuse me if I may, it's just noted, it's labeled as TGH Concierge Medical Facility.
And I guess
That's the title of the drawing.
I don't know all the ins and outs of the hospitals. So I don't know whether that has some sort of reference to the imaging, but the imaging is it. But really, what I would tell you to be focused on is the use that we're requesting is medical office, not medical clinic, medical office. That's the use. TGH's intention is to use it for imaging, but medical office is technically, and I think Sam would agree, we really can't get into different variations. It's medical office. I just want to be honest with you of what you would be recommending one way or the other. But it's medical office at the end of the day what we're requesting.
Okay.
Commissioner Haynes?
No questions.
Couple of questions. The joint use parking agreement, is that formal or informal with church?
It is informal, and the reason why it is informal is, and we've actually had the same conversation with the church that you might be familiar with. If that is formal, a church would jeopardize its not-for-profit status.
Okay. So you've heard a lot of comments from the audience. How do you propose to soften the blow?
So a couple things. One, I think mainly, and I wasn't involved back in 2005, but I think there's a conflation of the 2005 approval. I was here, again, not representing that developer, of the ALF. That was a very controversial exercise. So my thought on this all along was, here we are proceeding with just grandfathering this existing building, and this shouldn't have an issue, and rightfully or wrongfully, our lack of response from all the notices we received seemed to indicate that we wouldn't. So I think one is an understanding of exactly what it is that we're proposing, which I hope is clear now. I think that helps a lot. Two, and again, to Mr. Cimino's comments, this is not a clinic, it's a medical office. There's a big difference between those two. And then secondly, on his, we've never changed our application or modified our uses at all. Mr. Hapner, again, seemed to be a conflation of the 2005 approval, and then he had the comment on city transportation, gross versus net, but I think we've resolved that issue. Mrs. Likes mentioned the tree removal and the green space. Again, those were a part of the multifamily approval. Those will go away, as Sam mentioned. Parking, as Addie mentioned, and Randy Cohen's findings, only a negligible change in intensity with what we're proposing. While we can't technically count it, practically we've got the parking for the church across the street. That would more than satisfy 100% of the parking that would be required. There is on-street parking, and then I really think, and maybe this is a good place to close this, TGH is in the business of running a very professional operation. When they propose these types of things, they need them to function. They need them to function well, given the critical nature of what they do. And their team has studied the operations of this. They feel very happy with it. I'll close with, I think, what makes TGH very unique is if you look at the main campus on Davis Island, there is a massive parking deck there. We do all of TGH's work. There are actually additional spaces provided over and above what's required. Secondly, as you may know, not the prettiest building in sight, but off of Kennedy, TGH at the corporate center built a 1,000 space garage. They have shuttle services running between the two right outside the front door of this building. And so if a parking issue ever was to come up, TGH is the one group who is uniquely situated to be able to resolve any problems that are out there.
So I'd love to end on that, but I've got a couple more questions.
Sure.
You had mentioned, or I think your co-applicant mentioned that there are 48 parking spots and you were gonna find 2 more to get to 50. Where are you finding those?
Yeah, so not easily. So with parking, these compact spaces, it's kind of a work of art to be able to make some spaces that were not previously compact and make them compact. And sometimes you can shave off and find a space or two. We tried to even find more using like this row down here and make those compact. However, like I said, it's kind of an art in order to have enough compact spaces to get smaller in order to gain a full amount of space for another either compact space or a standard space. But this chunk right here, that I believe is where that came from.
And lucky for me, my co-applicant is also a traffic engineer by trade, and so I would not have been qualified to answer that question, but she is.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this site plan has got problems because it takes 9 to make 1. And that where you're showing that there is no end cap, so that technically doesn't meet current code. So you could lose 1 just to make current code, which is going the wrong direction. So I appreciate the client. I appreciate that they have the resources to make it happen, but I don't hear any, I don't know, I don't hear any concrete plan. And frankly, the informal agreement with Hyde Park works until it doesn't work. And then the residents are left with a problem. So I don't think your site plan, the magic, this is super tight.
So I'll just say that, and I totally respect your position here. So first of all, the arrangement's not with Hyde Park Methodist, it's with the Presbyterian Church across the street. But same situation, grant you that. 2, I think where this thing really comes down is what Randy looked at is existing use, which is Medi Weight Loss Clinic versus medical office building or medical office use. And his conclusion was the parking that's going to be generated from the new use is negligibly different one way or the other, basically the same as the current. So what we're showing here is exactly what's there, with the exception of we gained 2 spaces in that compact area. The site plan that you're seeing here.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
I get it. And I did a quick calculation at the 13.8. And if you take 20% off for equipment, you get down to 11. And if you use a 4.6 multiplier, you're right at 50.
Mm-hmm.
Just guessing that's how you did it.
Right.
So I get where you came up with the 50,
Mm-hmm.
but again, you're not at 50. And maybe you squeeze 1 more in there, but
So to clarify, city transportation has blessed this plan with the 50 spaces.
okay. I guess what I would look for, based on it seems like the concern, or maybe we're gradually getting to opposition to this, is a concrete plan from the client who would say, maybe employees don't park here. Maybe there's a strategy that says, hey, we're gonna guarantee you it's not gonna go over this, because this is a very aggressive parking plan. That would be my concern, and that was my question was, is there any room for that?
And that's where I think TGH is unique, that if they run into any parking challenges at all, They can do just like they do on the main campus. Employees park in the corporate center garage. There's a shuttle that takes them to the main campus. This literally goes by the doorstep. They are not going to allow a parking issue to impact their operations here.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions before rebuttal?
I do, just to follow on that.
Sure.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the Transportation Department has approved it with 50, but are 50 showing here?
Yes.
I think what Addie said was you're gonna work some magic to get to it, but it's not there now.
And then I misspoke, and so Sam was gracious enough to provide the survey of the existing site. So I believe it is 50 and 50 that exists today. I think I was misremembering. I think we were trying to find some magic and trying to get some more spaces in. And that was something that was not feasible, especially in order to have the number of handicap spaces that we're required to have.
So to clarify, 50.
I only
is
counted
50.
48, but, yeah. I mean, I just counted them and there were 48, unless there's something that I missed, but.
There's 3 spaces there. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So maybe
Yeah, but
Sam
th-
could.
I mean, that's,
Well, as long as the testimony is it's
Yeah.
50 and it's, okay.
So
We'll go with 50.
And I mean, I guess I was gonna say I don't wanna haggle over 50, but it's probably worth haggling over, to make sure it's there and that it is accounted for. You're already teed up to go to city council, so you're asking us for a recommendation.
Correct.
We would want to feel like what we're recommending is baked and not some magic that has to happen.
We will commit to 50. But for the record, which would travel also to city council.
And I think just maybe to add to the chair's thoughts, you have a room full of neighbors, residents, business associates that feel like they will be impacted by it. In your defense, if you were unaware of any of those concerns until tonight, you've now heard them. And if there were a concession like maybe has been suggested, I agree. From my perspective, TGH is a very professional party. I'm confident they want this operation to run effectively and efficiently and to not be a burden to the neighbors. If there was a willingness to commit to something on the record in the PD that would provide some assurance, I think it would go a long way.
Sure. So a couple things there. One, when TGH first looked at this, they don't think they will need, and again, this is my testimony, but I'm just giving it to you as conjecture. They don't think they'll ever need anywhere near the 50 spaces that will be provided from an operations standpoint. But I hear the concern, and I do think I'm, not speaking for them, but I think they would be amenable to definitely, if there ever was an issue. Again, they've got the corporate center parking garage. They've got a shuttle that goes directly on Hyde Park to Davis Island. So Mr. Kempton, as you mentioned, could they have, if an issue arose, could they have employees parking at the corporate center parking garage and then being dropped off at this location? I don't think that would be a problem at all, and TGH wants nothing more to be a good neighbor because the neighbors are who they provide medical services to. So I think they would be completely amenable to that.
Did you say, but to put that into the document?
I think that would reflect an assurance and an awareness that the neighbors are concerned and TGH is affirmatively seeking to be a good partner.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board?
Oh.
Sam Thomas, Development Coordination. I would have to speak with legal, but I'm not necessarily sure we can put a condition on a site plan that should there be a parking issue arise, that TGH will commit to having their employees park off-site and be shuttled there. I can't really see how that could be enforced through code enforcement.
Well, it's not if a problem arises. Is it that they commit to that in the PD now?
I don't.
As part of the PD?
Even as part of the PD, I don't see how code enforcement can enforce if the employees are parking on site or not. I would defer to legal on that, but from past experience with working with applicants to try to come up with specific conditions on sites, we have to think of it from a perspective of how can this be cited and then how can it be enforced through code enforcement. But I would defer to legal.
Yep. Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. I agree with Sam, and from my experience, that's true, but this is something that he can discuss with the City Attorney's Office in the next week as it comes towards council. You all are doing a recommendation as to whether or not you recommend this, that council approve it or not. And certainly I'm taking copious notes, and any of your concerns we'll talk about over the next week before it comes to council.
And I agree with your counsel. By you making that recommendation, we can try to vet that within the next week and see if we can find. I've used, if warranted, things along those natures, but I think Sam and you are both correct to not bootstrap the city council with this, correct? But we are totally amenable to that recommendation, and I'd even be happy to tell city council next week that was your recommendation, which they'll be told anyway. But I think TGH is uniquely situated to be able to provide that, and I don't think that would be any problem at all. Even if that's just us just putting that on the record, if it can't be in the legal document, I think they'd be open to that.
I think Commissioner Meyer, you had another question?
If TGH is uniquely able to solve this problem, could they solve it just by buying an additional property in the area?
I wish it was that. You've got some people here that live next door. I don't know if they're willing sellers, but.
And if you can't, maybe the solution, which does not require a kind of smoke and mirrors magical, the church across the street will gladly allow people to cross Hyde Park and, so maybe there's another spot.
And that is, I would love to be able to tell you, the city code does have a provision that you can have remote parking count towards your parking, should it meet certain code criteria.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to that here is predominantly yes, but what the church can't do, which other churches are encountering, is they can't jeopardize their not-for-profit status by entering into a lease with another party. There's been IRS cases on that, and that's just, we had that discussion with the church, and that was a no-go, and I've heard that from others, and so that was where that ended. But practically speaking, and again, hours of operation are going to be what code dictates, but we did look at some of TGH's other imaging centers, and 100% of those are closed on Sundays, which is obviously when that church is going to be utilizing that parking the most. So practically, again, and I'm not telling this isn't smoke and mirrors, but I'm just telling you it's not legal because I can't commit to that legally. But practically speaking, all the hours where TGH is going to be using this imaging center are going to be off-peak hours of this church and its operations.
So I have one question. So if they did a review of their other imaging centers, and I think I heard previously that TGH doesn't expect all these 50 spaces to be used at one time, I guess essentially. Is that based on their review of their other imaging centers, that all the spaces are never used?
Correct.
100% all the time?
So they've taken their other centers, looked at the demands, applied that to this function, and said we're not going to use anywhere near 50. But that's what we're based on code, and also kind of boxed in by what's existing here.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I think we did it all through the questions. Again, happy to answer any other questions you may have, but I think we covered everything.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing, and we will move to discussion.
I have no questions.
Okay.
I have no discussion, no comments other than, goodwill can be generated outside of processes like this and out of legal processes, and so perhaps TGH could informally reach out to the neighbors and have a discussion and put their minds at ease that if this ends up going through, that it won't adversely affect the neighbors there, and I would just ask that if that's possible, that TGH consider that and consider their agents and representatives to be able to reach out and at least try to have a one-on-one conversation with the neighbors.
Well, that can be part of the recommendation, so.
I find it odd that, I'm sorry, but TGH doesn't have a great record in terms of parking. Everybody that uses the hospital complains about their parking. Now I know, and it's not perfect, but it works and it stumbles along. And here, there's a neighborhood involved that is not currently impacted by TGH. And so it seems to me like there has to be some reasonable way for us to suggest to the city council that that this is a very tight space, and that they're asking for a substantial reduction in their parking requirement. And they can't provide any assurances that they will not go over this. For heaven's sakes, they have submitted that this should be a concierge medical practice until it didn't suit them anymore. And then they said, well, it'll be medical office then, and our parking will work magically because we changed it. But the title is still on the drawing. I mean, that's I've got to believe that something's going on there. And so we have to make some kind of recommendation to the council, and it seems to me that we should recommend that they be very careful, because there is a substantial reduction in parking without reasonable support that reduction is called for.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You have a client who has the resources and frankly, as the applicant said, has the infrastructure available. I think we'd be remiss, especially with the public concern, not to make a recommendation that basically says, we understand the site can only handle 50 parking spaces, and you get the feeling it was reverse engineered for that. But we have the ability to make a recommendation that says, hey, at least,
Another 40 spaces or something somewhere
well,
else.
there could be off-site in an existing facility through their system. And then city council does with it what they will. But the traffic is tough. And I'm comfortable that even though it's 110-foot max height, that really doesn't apply. They're not changing the building. I'm glad they got rid of the tree waiver. So all of that, but parking is an issue. But I think there's a relatively easy fix for it. We just make the recommendation.
Agree.
All right. So, who's up?
That's all right, we're.
Mr. Myers.
So we're making a recommendation, right?
To city council.
To city council.
To approve with conditions.
Approve with conditions. Okay.
It's recommendation to city council at the very bottom of it.
Yeah. Let me gather my thoughts here. Okay. And council, this is just PD to PD, is that correct?
Well, it's PD residential to PD.
Yeah, it actually is,
More complicated than that.
yeah, as it's titled on their drawing is how I would state the motion. PD rezone from plan development, PD residential and office to plan development, PD office, business and professional, and office medical.
Okay.
It's a mouthful.
So how do you want to, fellow members, how do you want to state this? That council be aware that the parking is very limited and,
Yeah, I mean, you might say, I mean, I don't know if it's a condition, but the condition that maybe city council consider that the parking is requested to be reduced from 89 to 50. That
Okay.
this council recommends city council review that request specifically, given the concerns of the neighborhood. And further request that the,
What I was gonna say was that we have the recommendation that either the employees park off-site, so that would be relatively easy. I don't know how many employees are gonna be here, but they park remote. Or that, in the event that there are any citizen parking complaints, then the parking becomes remote.
can you enforce that though? Is that?
No, if, I would simply make your recommendation with the condition that city council give attention to the parking issues that you've heard tonight, and let them figure out how they wish to address it when they approve the PD.
Okay.
I think all we can do is highlight that it's of concern.
Okay.
And we'll look at it over the next week.
Okay.
So I need to start over again on this. All right. Move to recommend City Council approve ARC 24-000427, rezoning 24-00001112 for the property located at 509 South Hyde Park Avenue for the proposed rezoning from planned development PD residential and office to planned development PD office, business, and professional office, comma, medical, with the following conditions: that the council consider that parking is being reduced by waiver, has been requested to be reduced by waiver from 83 spaces to 50 spaces in an already congested area. That's sufficient.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, with that, we need a motion to receive and file submitted documents and exhibits.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
Second, all right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, and the hearing is adjourned. Thank you, guys. Thank you. See you, who's not here?